Welcome to this month's Greg Griffith Leadership Podcast. Join Greg Griffith as we together learn what it means to be leaders of our world as we faithfully love and faithfully lead. Like, share, rate, and review this podcast with your friends and others of influence, for they too are looking for people like you to help them lead and love day to day. Without further ado, here is your host, Greg Griffith.
Well, hello, leaders. Welcome today, and you are in for a real treat today. It is going to be a lot of fun. We're going to be learning from someone who I've just kind of started to get to know and been able to watch her with her influence and be able to watch her with her leadership and her care, but also her faith. And it really has, what I say is love to cascade down, and it really has cascaded down through her family into our community, and into my family as well. One of my children is entrusted to her care on a daily basis, and you know, it's that kind of old saying where you tell me what my kid has done, and I'm like, "Are you sure you're talking about my child?" In a good way.
She's fantastic.
So, yeah, she'd be mortified if she knew we were talking about her right now. So
she would. I would agree.
So I'm excited. We're with Amy Schwarting here, and she is the principal at Concordia Lutheran Middle School and High School, right? Or Junior Senior High, and has been teaching and a part of that community for 20 years. She is married to Chad, has Spencer, Tanner, and Carly as her own kids, and grandkids. How many grandkids now? Two grandkids now. And we're just in for a delight. First, Amy, just tell us a little bit about your family, and welcome. Thanks for being here today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's an honor to be asked. So like you said, I have three kids. Spencer is my oldest. He's married to Rachel, and they have two granddogs for us, Odin and Triss, and they get to come spend the weekend with us next weekend. And Tanner and Megan have two kids and one granddog, and Carly. And they are, not to brag, pretty darn awesome.
They are.
We love them very much.
Yeah, they are. And I know Spencer the best. Spencer's here at King of Kings, and just a great young man.
Yes,
so,
he is.
Yeah.
He after I watched him Sunday, I said, that didn't come from any of us. God gifted you. God has gifted you greatly.
Yeah, terrifically. Yeah. So tell me this. Tell me about your upbringing as a kid and your faith. I want to talk a lot about your faith because I'm just so impressed and becoming inspired to aspire more to hear and learn more about your faith. But tell me about your upbringing as a kid and where Jesus played a role in that.
So a lot of people don't understand this, but I don't ever not remember not knowing God.
Wow.
He's always been a part of my life. Grew up in about 75 miles west of here in Columbus, Nebraska, and in a sort of a rural farming community. I can say that I'm related to a good portion of the town, and especially north of Columbus in the farming community and the Lutheran churches there. It'd be hard to throw a stone to people I'm not related to. But growing up, it was just God in church. It was just always there. My dad was a fantastic role model with having that quiet time with God. You'd get up in the morning and I'd see him sitting at a table or in a chair, just had his Bible out and his portal of prayer. I don't ever remember that not being there. And his view of service. I've never met somebody who so willingly helps others without a grumble that I could hear, and just does anything for anybody. We grew up going to church every Sunday. I've got three little siblings, younger siblings, a younger brother and two younger sisters. And it was just part of our life. We were always in Bible school. We would go out to the country churches and visit our grandparents and go to Christmases out there and holidays out there. And then the whole family would come in from all over, and we'd all meet in those churches. And those are some really good memories. The old pipe organs going, and it's nice to go back every now and then and just see that. But you grow up that way, and you get old enough, and then I'm teaching Sunday school, and teach Sunday school. I was always drawn to kids, and I taught little kids, which is funny that I'm in high school now. And we just spent time as a family. We had devotions, and we would get to an age where the devotions, my mom and dad would read them, and then we'd start getting the giggles at the dinner table. And so then we'd have to sit, and our chairs would have to face out, which made that funnier. And so we would get the giggles, and then we got old enough where we'd have to take turns, reading the devotion. And so I'm sure my mom and dad were frustrated with how some of that process went, and praying with your parents at bedtime, pray before every meal. We would get together with my grandparents on my dad's side, and for like a holiday or a big family dinner, and it'd be a big long table, and we'd all fold our hands and bow our heads, and then we'd be like, us kids were removed, looking around, going, anybody saying anything? And my grandpa would pray so quietly that we couldn't hear him. And then we'd wait for the cue of everybody started to eat, and we'd all be like, amen, and then we'd eat.
That's great.
But I remember my grandparents, every night we'd spend weeks there during the summers because they lived on farms, and we would pray with them and have devotions. We said the Lord's Prayer every night together with them. So it was just always there, and I always kind of owned it. I was always just part of being ingrained in my being.
How old were you when you first started teaching kids in Sunday school?
I would say I was probably a freshman or sophomore.
In college or in high school? High school. Mm-hmm. Wow. So like you kind of said Sunday wasn't your son. You said that's all from God. But I mean, think about that. Like just so for all of our listeners, your son is the congregational president there, and here at King of Kings, and I think he began that, and he was probably 25, 26,
he was
something
like
that, right?
One
and
ever.
So and he just told me recently his story of when he was in high school here. He just said, what do those guys do as the board of our lay ministry or board of directors here? And he just said, how do I do that? How do I lead that way? And so, wow, what a tremendous gift, but that's where it comes from.
Interestingly with him, he has always had that pastoral leadership spirit. And when he was in high school, I would tell everybody, oh, Spencer's going to be a pastor. Yeah. And finally he would say, Mom, will you stop telling everybody that if I just think about it? And I'm like, okay, fair, I'll stop. Then here he's leading a church, but in a different way than what I thought maybe he would.
Yeah, absolutely. What a gifted young man. So how'd you like even think about, okay, I want to go into teaching? How'd you begin that journey?
God planted that seed when I was really, really young. I grew up in a neighborhood full of boys. And so we'd play football and baseball, and then I'd make them come in the house, and I'd set up a classroom in the toy room of our home. And I had a chalkboard, and I'd hand them assignments, and I'd make them do the work. And I was so excited to check their papers once they left, and they're all rolling their eyes. We should be outside. I go, no, we're going to play school for right now. So it was just that. It's just always been wired into me.
Wired that way. Okay. Wow. Now, it's one thing to be a teacher. It's another thing to become a principal. And then we'll talk a little bit about what it was like principaling through COVID there, because that's just got to be a crazy, unique experience as well. But so teaching, you got into it, something always been wired to you. When did you start to say, I'd like to start and maybe God's wired me to lead as a principal?
About probably like 2012, 13-ish, I was just really bored with teaching. I taught the same level. When I graduated from college, I thought I was going to teach little kids. And I did that for 1 year, and God says, see, that's not how you're wired. That was an interesting experience for the kids and for me. But I've always been like in a middle school setting, and I was a science teacher. And I just did that for so long that I was just bored. And so I was going to get out of education. I was going to choose to do something else. And actually, we were within like 2 weeks after I told my husband I'm going to start looking at something else. I had probably 15 to 20 people say to me, you should be a principal. Have you ever thought about being a principal? Maybe you should be a principal. And I'm like, maybe I should be a principal. And weighing that with our family, we include our kids in a lot of our family discussions. And we're driving to church one day, and we're talking about it. And Spencer, the wisdom of Spencer, he goes, Mom, can you see yourself being a 6th grade teacher and a science teacher for the rest of your life? And I went, no. And from that moment, that day, to when I was enrolled and going to grad classes, it was 2 weeks.
Wow.
And away we went. Yeah. So I've always been bossy too, so it kind of fits.
But so talk a little bit about leading a school through COVID, and just what, I mean, and we were here. So like all of a sudden my kid comes home, and like I don't even pretend that we were teaching her. She was still doing online stuff. And I got to admit, I was super thankful for the technology that was in the classrooms. And that was unique for us when we first had that. I was like, I don't know, my kid has an iPad in her classroom. And, like I get texts of like, what's for dinner at like 2:00. I'm like, what are you asking me for? You should be doing something. But then I was like, oh, thank goodness. Right.
Right.
But talk about that whole thing. Like,
that was something. Luckily, by God's grace, we had already implemented something called Canvas, which is our learning management system, and the teachers were comfortable with that platform. And what that is that's a program basically that teachers put in their grades. They can put in their assignments. Some of my teachers have videos of them teaching. So when the shutdown happened in March, we were able to have 1 day of teaching the teachers how to Zoom, and we were back up and running the very next day. And that, I think, was due to Canvas, because they could put everything online and have everything ready to go. And I believe that our kids didn't miss much in content or teaching. In fact, some of our teachers ended up ahead of where they were content-wise if they had been in a in-person classroom. So I was comfortable with that. But I remember, like, all of a sudden your halls are silent. That senior class that year was a phenomenal group of kids, and you go through a mourning process because you didn't get to say goodbye. It hit the weekend of our school musical, and it was a knockout performance of Les Mis, and they couldn't have their performances with the whole crowd. It was only family invited. We had to create seating charts. You can only sit there. And those kids were devastated because that would have won all kinds of awards. We just had some super talented kids in that group. And the halls are just silent. And I remember just walking laps in the gym and walking up through our hall, and like I made a loop, and it's just, oh, Lord, what is going on? It was such a surreal, icky thing. And our teachers, boy, I can't tell you how amazing the staff at Concordia is. They're some of my favorite people, and they are such troopers. They took the responsibility of being a Zoom teacher and owned it. And they did some pretty fun things. Our junior high teachers had a field day where they gave the kids activities they would do at home. And so you had to send in a video of you
I remember that.
doing,
Yeah.
what are some of the things Macy did?
Oh, she had some walking things, I think. Like she had to do something like that. I feel like there were jumping jacks or something like that, that she was doing some stuff. Yeah, I remember it was in the basement. And so, because we were home too. So, yeah.
And like that senior class didn't get a graduation. So we had graduation at the end of July, hoping things would be better. And then it's still not, they couldn't invite their family to their graduation. A couple of our kids had COVID during that graduation. And every year we do something called a senior blessing, where a senior chooses a staff member to speak a blessing over them. And we had to do that online. And, it's such a moving, impactful service, but now we're talking through a camera. And the seniors, I hurt for those seniors. They didn't get a prom. They did an outdoor hang out in the parking lot prom thing. And yeah, I just felt really bad for them. And then we go through the summer and you think, yeah, we're going to be okay this year. And then we're not okay this year. But we came back full time in Mass the first school year after that. And the kids were so well behaved that they did not want to be sent home again. They did not want to have to do school online.
Right.
And it was like the easiest discipline year I've ever had, because they just wanted to be with each other and have that community and that fellowship so badly that they kept their masks on, and then the end of the year wore on and they're like, well, this is kind of dumb. But
let me ask this question. This wasn't on our list here. So, but one, I just know you're a very encouraging, life-giving person. Through that time, I mean, it was hard. There was decision fatigue, right? I am sure, you experienced a little bit of what most who lead organizations experience as well, where one day you say, here's what we're doing, then everything changes, and the next day you're switching things up. And that's really hard for those that are all going, wait a minute, we already made a decision, or a decision was made. So what are some things that you did, or how did you just encourage and lead your team through that, lead those teachers through that time? Because like you said, there's a lot of grief, more grief than mountaintops during that time. Yes. And so, but I can say as a parent, it just seemed like, I never heard like we don't like this. It was just kind of like, hey, here's what's exciting. Kids were still engaged. My daughter still would get on. She never complained about it, right? She didn't love doing gym at home. So, but other than that, though, but I don't think she loves gym at school either. But
there you go.
so yeah. So how did you encourage through that? And then even for yourself through decision fatigue and just
right. Well, constant. With the decision fatigue, thankfully we have a group of doctors and medical professionals that were parents at our school that we could go to make those decisions. What's the wisest thing given the information we have for our kids, our teachers, for everything. And I think once we got past the fear, there was so much fear in the beginning because there was fear of the unknown. You didn't know what was going to happen. Who was going to die, all of that. Once we got past the fear, the teachers were willing to get together. And the staff that I have loves to be together. They love to play together. There's always some goofy thing going on with them. And so we really encourage them to be together, telling them thank you. Just thank you. And telling them, I know this is hard. This is awful. This is none of us wanted this, but we got to fight through it. And we're still in the mission field. We're still taking care of kids. We're still showing them Jesus every day. And we just rally up, and a lot of credit goes to the staff. They're fantastic. They're fantastic.
So I've kind of been saying, I never have been thankful for COVID, but I am thankful as I look back, I can see what God has done out of COVID. In the education world, what is maybe something that you're like, I'm thankful for what God has done out of COVID?
I think what it did is it forced us to look at some of the processes we have at our school. And we changed a few things that we probably would have never changed prior to that. And some of them we said, well, we're going to drop that and go back to what we did. But for example, like our fall pep rally is a big giant lip sync contest between the high school grades. Well, we couldn't all be packed in the gym and screaming and hollering like we usually do. So we took it out onto the football field, and the kids got to be outside. It got to be normal. They got to do something normal. Didn't have to wear masks. So things like that, that we didn't have, that it forced us to change for the better. The teachers and the staff got fantastic at using the internet and Canvas and everything to where it's still helping us today. You have kids that have long-term illnesses. They have surgeries. They can't be in school for days, but we're able to Zoom. And so we just have it up and running for whoever would maybe need it, and they can still do that. We would have never had that option had COVID not hit. So a lot of our kids are able to do school when they can't be at school yet.
That's great.
I don't know if the kids think that's such a fantastic idea, but
yeah. Well, as a parent, I'm like, why do we have snow days now? Can't we all just still do it?
Oh,
Anyways,
we're having snow days. That is a gift to all people who work in schools.
Let's talk about this. What's one thing right now you're really excited about?
Well, if we go personally, I'm super excited about having grandkids. That is the best thing ever. But I'm also very excited about where we live. We moved onto that acreage, and it's a lot of work, but the dream is to make it into something where we can have church leaders and church staffs come out, get away. We're close enough to the city that it's a quick drive. Come out there, hang out, it's super quiet out there. It's all just looking at God's creation. And we would love to be able to have people come out and just be able to hang out there. We have a babbling brook that goes behind us, and I want to put benches out there. You just sit out there and spend time with the Lord. I don't know, that's what I'm excited about. And I kind of want to do a flower farm. I want to start planting flowers and selling flowers. But so those things kind of get me excited. But like at school, excited is we are growing like crazy. God has knocked down the doors, and he's sending us kids constantly. So we're going into a building project, and it's amazing watching him move. Amazing.
Yeah, let me start with the second one. I came from a church school before I moved to Omaha, and man, the pressure always was enrollment. Right?
We've been there.
And that was every really faith-based private school was always like enrollment, and figuring all that out. And for the first time, I'm hearing now from other friends and other educators that are in administration of it's not an enrollment question anymore, right?
No.
Now it's totally different.
It is.
Right?
It is. It used to be we'd have all these Lutheran students who came from the Lutheran churches. They understood us. They knew who we are. And now we're getting people from all over the place. Our school, for example, has kids from over 90, 95 different church homes and all different faiths. And so now we're in the mission field. And I kind of give COVID credit for that as well, because, COVID was very controversial, and whatever public school the kids are coming from, whether they liked it or not, or the parents liked it or not, they would, they're looking for something different. A lot of the racial tension, a lot of the political tension that happened after that is also contributing to our growth and enrollment. But yeah, it's really exciting.
That's great. And then second, I just love your servant heart, right? You're talking about land, and I didn't even know this, that you have a dream of having a place that people can just come and be in the stillness of God, right? And, and what a blessing.
Yeah.
So, awesome.
The first time I brought that up to Chad, where we have a side-by-side and I'm driving around, we have trails through the trees that we go through. And I said, I think we need to make this into something like where people can come and enjoy it. Like, I want to bring out church groups. I want people to be able to come out here and just hang out with God. And he looks at me and he goes, "You're asking me to share?" And I said, "Yeah, kind of."
I love it. I love it. What's a challenge you're facing right now?
I would say that another somewhat, I think we're seeing the results of COVID with this too, is, I've got about 470 kids in our school. And I have 3 of my own children, but I feel like 470 of these kids are my own child. You love them like that. They're spending more time with us than they often do at home because they're so busy after school too, and they're just go, 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 go. The mental health of our students is really concerning with a lot of our students. They are carrying so much anxiety, so much stress, so much peer pressure from the digital realm, that we have seen more kids this year that we need to have admitted for wanting to take their lives or having a plan than we've ever had. And it's almost a daily thing when we hear something like that. And so, equipping staff for that, equipping myself. We have one school counselor, and she can't carry that whole bag on her own. So I've become a counselor. And so that's just really hard. Your heart breaks for them, and then you have to. They break for the parents, because sometimes I'm telling the parents something they didn't even know, and saying, your child needs a lot of help navigating these waters, and it's hard for them. So I would say that's probably one of the hardest things about school right now is just the mental health of our kids.
It's interesting you say that. I think one thing I've noticed just as a parent, and I'd be curious about this, is, due to social media and now, like when we were growing up, if you want to talk to your friends, it had to be on the phone, right? And you were there and you would call, and if it was busy, you just couldn't get through, But now with social media, there's a constant talking through texting,
or not talking.
Or not talking.
Right? Like getting ghosted is devastating.
Oh, totally.
Devastating to kids.
Yeah. Yeah. And or even they're talking while they're doing homework and there's a picture on the side or whatever. I don't, my kids do some of that. But what I've noticed with both of my kids is they're also in some way quasi counseling, right? Like, I mean, and so our kids actually are carrying some of the emotional burden of another friend, and they'll say, "What do I do with this? What do I do?" And I'm going, "You're 13, you're 10.
Yeah,
that's not for you. You're not an adult. Like even an adult would struggle with this. That's for someone else. But they're it's just it's so hard.
Yeah, and praise God that these kids who are struggling are sharing it with somebody. Mm-hmm. And praise God that these kids that they're sharing it with have the presence of mind to come talk to an adult. Mm-hmm. They'll come and bring it to me. And so I tell those kids, I go, okay, you've done the right thing. You've let me know. You've let us know. And now I'm going to carry it for you. You get to lay this down. You pray for them. You lift them up. You encourage, you love, but you don't have to carry this burden. That's not yours to carry. But what's easier said than done, right?
Right. Totally. Wow. What a challenge for that. And so I'm hearing you say, right, every teacher is also now a counselor, right? Because the one counselor you have for 427 students. I mean, imagine your counselor having 400 clients. You would go, I never get a second, right? And so, Yeah. Wow. That's definitely a gap, definitely a problem, something to think in on that. So what's one of your greatest successes when you look and say, man, this just...
Well, I kept my
I
3
won
kids
here.
alive.
Yeah.
I count that is pretty successful. I would say when I first started principaling, I was only the junior high principal, and that lasted about 2 years. And then I was going into my 3rd year, and 10 days before school started, I was told that I was going to be principal for the junior and the senior high. And I was like, okay. And a lot I didn't know. I didn't know what the teachers did. I didn't know what their strengths were. I mean, you could see it from afar. Oh yeah, you're the basketball coach. I understand what you're doing. But with that transition, there was a lot of division amongst the staff, and they didn't know how to process everything that was happening, and so it got to be like October, and I had to just bring them all in and just say, you know what, I don't know why, but God gave me the steering wheel to this bus, and so I have to take it. I want you all to be on this bus with me, but if you can't be 100% all in on this bus with me, it's okay. It's okay if you feel like you need to go somewhere else. It's okay. And by the end of that school year, our staff had united and come together. We were intentional about getting them together to play and talk, and we did several things in services. And now we have a rock star staff, and I don't want to take all the credit for that, but
what great courage, right? I mean, because
that was scary. That's when you ask for intercessors.
Right.
And my front office, like I had my Bible open, I had all this stuff open on my desk. And when I went in there, I looked at them in my front office staff and I said, okay, I just need you to pray for me while I'm in there. And they do. And that's such a wonderful thing to know that you are being lifted up when you're walking through something like that.
Yeah. Well, you brought that up. And that was one of the things that I just said, I've got to talk with you in this. I know you're a person who has intercessors who pray for you. I know you're a person that fasts, which is not common in our faith walk, even though it's called for in the scriptures. So how'd you just begin to rely on this? Like, how did you look and say, I need these things?
Well, like I said, God and I have always kind of hung out. Mm-hmm. That's how I take it. That's how I word it. But, we got married young, had kids young, and you get so busy. And then we moved to Omaha when I was like right in my early 30s, and everything seemed to kind of fall apart because we moved here for my husband's job, and he lost his job. And so you have to just press in into the Lord. And I started having really bad anxiety and panic attacks. The whole security thing wasn't there. And I had some teachers on staff, Sue Trinkline, love her, and Francie Hines, and a few people that are King of Kings people or have had connections, just praying for me and encouraging me and just kind of walking me through it. So there's my intercessors. And through that, I found a Bible study, and I was trying to think the other day of what it was called, like a devotion book. And it was something about the secret place. And that devotion book, which I really need to figure out what that is, that changed how I do God, if that makes sense. A combination between that and Sue took my faith, which I call it was in like a little box. It was in this nice, neat little package, and it blew open the lid and it knocked down the walls, and it just opened God up to me to see how big and huge and powerful, amazing and loving He is. And with that secret place, the message was, you have to spend time with the Lord alone, you and the Lord every day. And so having 3 little kids and stressed. And I thought, well, something's got to help me work through this. And so I started then every morning I get up before everybody, and I call it my Jesus time. And I hang out with God. And sometimes he and I just have coffee together. And sometimes we're chatting, you're in the Word, you're doing a devotion, or I'm doing a Bible study. But it's an everyday thing. And that is something that I have not, there's days where you're like, oh, I got to sleep in a little bit. But like now I get up at 4:45 every day. So I get my Jesus time, and I can get ready and drive to school and be at school by 7:15. So that's very important to me. And I used to have a little dog. His name was Leo, and he always sat on my lap, and we hung out with Jesus together. And when he passed away, the kids were like, we need to get you another Jesus dog.
That's good.
So, but that's super important. I also use my drive in, because it's about a 30-minute drive for me to get to school. I either listen to the Bible Project, or I'm praying, or I listen to worship music. That's mandatory all the way in. And then I set in my car when I get there, and I say, just Lord, today I need your words, and I need your heart, and I need your love. Because if mine come out, it's not going to turn out so well. So that's my everyday.
One of the things I've just noticed about you, and I've seen you, and obviously through COVID, and even through just an influx of 150
new to our school students this year.
150 new students to your school. You're just unflappable on the outside. Maybe on the inside there's turmoil, but
it's like a duck.
But it's just, and that's the thing that separates leaders apart, right? Non-anxious leadership really thrives, right? Anxiety-driven leadership just brings a huge wake of chaos behind. So let me ask this question: like, how do you do that? How do you stay centered in the midst of where you're just that? Like, how does that happen?
If I didn't spend that time with the Lord every morning,
Mm-hmm.
I would be much more frazzled, because I can tell days I don't, my whole day is off. Mm-hmm. And so that is super important. I have a fantastic husband who has learned what Mark said in his your little living room chat you had the other day. Do you want me to help you with this, or do you just want me to listen? And he's really good. We usually don't even have to communicate that. He knows when I need help with that. And my parents are prayer warriors for me. I've got good friends who are praying for me. And I think God just wired me to be able to handle like at school. It's constant, a barrage constant. Like I'll walk in the door and I am on, and sometimes I don't even have time to eat through the whole day, because it's just constant. Like I started leaving to get here an hour before I needed to be here, because I knew that as I'm walking out the door, you're giving hugs and you're having high five. And what about this? What about this? The whole way out, because I had to go through the commons during lunch. But centering on the Lord, having those supports. And I just really think God's wired me to typically not carry the burdens that are given to me. I can go home normally and not carry that. Some of the things this year have been pretty big and heavy. So it's been a little different, and that's been a little bit harder to walk through, but I'm learning how to handle some of those things.
So what, if you could share one thing with someone listening today, what would it be?
Oh, can I share two?
Yeah.
Okay. First one's a serious one. Well, they're both serious. I would say some of the best advice I got when I was walking through that really icky area when Chad lost his job was just be still. As a mom of 3 young kids, working full time, trying to keep the house up, trying to cook dinner. I wasn't good at being still. I'm still not good at slowing down. I get the crawlies if I have to, like, I don't have anything to do. But just be still. If you're a young mom or a young dad, you just have to step back and watch your kids. Enjoy what they're doing. Have a conversation with them.
That's good.
And as they get older, same, like some of the families are walking through times where their kids are involved in all kinds of activities. Stop what you're doing and watch them. Just be still. Thank the Lord for them. Pray over them while they're doing something. There's been so many times that I have walked through our house and stopped at each one of my kids' doors when they're sleeping and just prayed over them while they're sleeping. And just taking that time to be still.
That's good.
My other advice will help you be still. Everybody needs to get a robot vacuum.
They are great.
That is good. Like my saving grace. I have one upstairs and one downstairs. So everybody needs one of those.
That is true. We have one too, and they are really, really.
Well, we have 2 dogs and lots of fur. So it's wonderful.
That's really good. All right. Let me wrap up with this one more question, not on our list, but I just heard recently, and I didn't know this, but I learn this all the time with my kids, right? They'll tell me words that are like new words that I don't know those are words. And then I'll say things and I'll say, you don't say it that way. Like, and I just was listening to a podcast with a guy who was saying that he's my age, and he was saying he always called it the prom, but it's not called the prom. It's just called prom. No clue, right? None of those. So give everyone here just one tip. Here's a new word. Here's something that we probably say that we're our age, right? In the 30s, 40-year-olds are saying that kids are going, that's not, like, you're just old.
Yeah, well, I do that on purpose at school just because I find that entertaining.
Yeah.
So I don't really know what we say that is old, but what the kids are saying now is slay.
Yes, my
like
daughter
slay,
has said that. I don't know.
Slay. So then I use it wrong just to irritate them. But that's one of the newer words that I hear is slay.
Do you know what it means?
It's like, another one is dripping.
Dripping?
I'll get to that one.
Okay.
Slay is like, oh, awesome is what we would say.
So slay means awesome.
Yeah.
Slay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to try that.
So I had a student come up to me and go, whoa, Mrs. Schwarting, you're dripping today. And I'm like, dry, all dry. That means the outfit you're wearing or the clothes you're wearing look really nice.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
You're dripping.
Okay.
I'm like, okay.
Okay.
I think I have a little chart to keep track of all the new words.
Oh my gosh. Well, Amy, this has been just so much fun, and I've really enjoyed it. I've learned a lot for my own personal prayer. Learned how also to be praying for all of our educators, teachers, and administrators, and also praising God for, because, Christian schools right now are full. And what a rich opportunity we have to share the gospel and to the good news for that. So let's also just always give thanks and praise for that.
Yes.
Thanks so much for today.
Yes. Oh,
I
thank you
appreciate
for having me. It was fun.
All right. Have a good one. And once again, share this, let everyone know about this, and let's just keep leading and learning faithfully. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you for being a part of this month's Greg Griffith Leadership Podcast. Join Greg next month for leadership insights to faithfully love and faithfully lead. Now go be terrific today.